were discussing the hydrogen atom. If you remember, the Hamiltonian for the hydrogen atom is this one. This is the nuclear kinetic energy, electronic kinetic energy, and the interaction between the two. And this, the way this Hamiltonian is written, it is not possible to apply the method of separation of variables as it is and solve the Schrodinger equation. So, therefore, we changed over to the center of mass coordinates and the relative coordinates with the transformation we discussed yesterday. And after the transformation is done, what happens is that you have this kinetic energy term which describes the motion of the two particles together as a whole, that is center of mass motion, that just execute translational motion. And this part of the Hamiltonian represents relative motion. This represents center of mass motion. And the total Hamiltonian, so to say, right, for the entire system is the sum of these two. So, I could say that H total, if you like, I can add a subscript here if I want, because this now has a translational motion as well as a relative motion inside it, right, explicitly. And then what will happen, you see, translational motion is simple, it is just the motion of a free particle. And if you wanted to solve this equation, I mean the Hamiltonian has to operate upon psi and give you E psi, but if you want to solve the equation, what you will do is you will say that psi may be written as a product of two functions. I will denote both of them by psi, but one is for center of mass motion and the other one is for relative motion. And center of mass motion, the wave function will depend only upon the center of mass, right, and the relative motion, it will depend only upon the relative coordinate. Okay. So, this is what I expect. I can take this equation or this assumption and put it back into the Schrodinger equation and separate the variables. It is very easy to separate the variables. Then what will happen? You will get an equation which will determine psi center of mass. You will also get another equation which will determine psi relative. So, what are those equations? Well, the way they come out, this is fairly easy, because we have done this kind of method of separation of variables once. I am not going to go through the procedure. The procedure is not difficult. What happens is you will get minus h cross square by 2 times capital M plus small m del square operating upon psi center of mass must be equal to a constant times psi center of mass. A constant, I have not written the constant, but this constant will actually represent the translational energy of the hydrogen molecule. And so, what I will do is I will write it as E, but I will put the subscript Cm just to remind you that it is center of mass motion, and the energy, this energy is the energy of the system due to its translational motion as a whole. And what will be the other equation? The other equation will be minus h cross square divided by 2 mu. Well, I mean I have been sloppy here, I should write an r here, because this differentiation is with respect to the center of mass coordinates. Then I will have minus h cross square by 2 mu del r square. This is actually kinetic energy due to relative motion, that is where this comes from. And what is that part? It is actually this one, right. This is the one that involves relative motion. This is kinetic energy, that is potential energy. So, therefore, what will happen is that you will have minus E square divided by correct, that is the potential energy, and the whole thing operating upon psi relative, which will depend upon r, and that must be equal to E relative into psi relative r. Correct. And not only that, see, if you are looking at this psi, okay, here maybe I should put a subscript, this is for the total system, and so this psi will be total, and this E will be total, and this psi will be the total wave function, and what I have written here is the total wave function. So, if you are looking at this E total, what would it be? If you carried out the method of separation of variables, what you will find is that E total would be found to be equal to E center of mass plus E relative. That is what you will get. You will get it from the equations, which is not surprising, because all that it says is that the total energy of the system is the sum of the translation energy due to the motion of the system as a whole and the energy due to relative motion. Now, we are interested in the relative motion. Translation energy is simple, I mean this is not a difficult problem, it is just a free particle moving in space. One can easily solve the equation, we are not terribly interested in that at the moment. So, we want to look at this equation, right. So, what we will do is we will just confine to that equation and forget about the other equations. And not only that, I am actually going to simplify my notation. See, this r I will not be writing anymore, because it is a nuisance. But when you see del square, you have to understand that this is differentiation with respect to small x, small y and small z, which are actually relative coordinates. Okay. And this relative, even I am not going to write, E relative also I am not going to write it fully, I am going to remove these things. But you should understand that I am actually concerned with relative motion, because you see it is tedious to write those things again and again and again, that is the only reason why we omit them. So, if you look at this, you see what is happening is this. Let us look at it. I mean the way this equation is, imagine I have a particle, here is my origin, right. Suppose I have a coordinate system, that is the origin, and I have a particle which has coordinates x, y, z, correct. And imagine I want to describe the quantum mechanics of the particle, single particle. What will be the kinetic energy of the particle, or the operator corresponding to kinetic energy? It is going to be minus h cross square divided by 2 times the mass of the particle into del square. So, if I imagined a particle of mass mu, then this will be exactly the kinetic energy of such a particle, right. And further, what is this term? This term actually represents the interaction with the nucleus, which we can say is now here. I mean it is as if it is interacting with the nucleus which is situated at the origin, right. If the nucleus was at the origin, then this would have been the interaction energy. So, therefore, all that you are saying is that okay, effectively this is equivalent to that of a single particle, right, moving in the presence of a nucleus which may be thought to be at the origin, right. But the only thing is that we actually have to account for relative motion, but relative motion means both the particles are actually moving, as I said yesterday, and that is accounted for 4 by the fact that there is this mu, right. It is not actually the mass of the electron, but the reduced mass, right. So, therefore, this Hamiltonian is quite fine actually. I mean, I can imagine that the nucleus may be taken to be at the origin with which is exciting this Coulombic electrostatic interaction with the electron. Okay. So, with that, let us try to solve this equation. How will you solve this equation? The way to solve this equation, you know, actually the way is use the method of separation of variables, right. So, what will you try? Okay. You gave me that answer because you knew the answer earlier. Yeah, that is true, but suppose I did not know that. So, you see, what I would try is I would say that okay, psi may be written, psi is a function of 3 variables x, y and z, and it may perhaps be written as capital X into x, capital Y into y, capital Z into Z. This is what you will normally try, correct, but this procedure will not work for this particular problem. Why does it not work? The answer is that if you look at this r, what is the distance of the particle from the origin? R is actually the distance of the particle from the origin, and it will depend upon where the particle is, and the relationship is actually it is equal to square root of x square plus y square plus z square, and the potential energy actually depends upon 1 by r. So, it is actually dependent upon 1 by square root of x square plus y square plus z square. See, if the method of separation of variables is to work in Cartesian coordinates, then it should be possible for you to write the potential energy of the system as the sum of separate terms, one depending only upon x, the other depending only on y, and the third depending only on z. That obviously is not possible with this potential, right. That is why the method of separation of variables will not work. If it was possible to separate the potential into 3 separate parts, one depending on x, the other depending on y, and the third depending on z, then it would have been possible to separate the variables in the Cartesian coordinate system, but that is not the way this potential is. Now, if you look at the characteristic of this potential, what is the characteristic? Well, what we can say is the following. So, imagine that I keep the distance of the particle, which is of course electron, from the origin fixed. Suppose that means I am thinking of all points on the surface of a sphere which surrounds the origin, correct, and you can see that anywhere on the surface of that sphere r will be a constant, and if r is a constant, the potential energy will be a constant. So, therefore, this is a potential that has a spherical symmetry, right. That is the meaning. This is a potential that has spherical symmetry and if you had a problem with spherical symmetry, right, you have to make use of a coordinate system which will exploit that spherical symmetry of the system. You should not use Cartesian coordinates. Cartesian coordinates is appropriate if you had cubic symmetry. Okay. So, this is a system which has spherical symmetry. So, therefore, I have to change over to a system of coordinates which would use, right, this spherical symmetry of the system, and a system of coordinates which does that is the polar coordinates. So, what are the definitions of polar coordinates, but before I go into the definition of polar coordinates, let me just look at what I have on the slides. I mean, this is just the motion of the system as a whole, but we know that the electron is actually moving around the nucleus and the whole thing. And this whole thing will actually execute translational motion, and that is the reason why we said the Hamiltonian can be written like this. Naturally, the total energy will be given by this expression. The total wave function will be a product, and we are worried only about the relative motion. This is the equation that we are actually going to solve, and we have to change to polar coordinates. So, how do I define polar coordinates? Well, before I define polar coordinates, let me just remind you what are meant by Cartesian coordinates. Imagine that you have the electron sitting there, and that is the origin, and you can imagine now that the nucleus is at the origin, and the electron has the coordinates x, y, and z. Okay. So, it is actually quite convenient if I had a coordinate system to make use of. Maybe I hope you have to imagine that there is this line which joins this wall to the floor. That line I will take to be my y axis. Somewhere in the corner there is a line which is going up vertically, that I will take to be my z axis. And you can imagine, well, there is a scale here which you may imagine, I mean, it has to be put on the floor, and that is going to be my x axis. Okay. So, that is how things are, and so the system of coordinates is actually shown there, and this is my electron. And in order to specify the position of the electron, what do? I mean, if you like, you can imagine instead of the electron, you can imagine you are thinking of the head of a person, that is the point that you want to specify in space. How will you do that? The answer is this. Instead of having that picture of the person, I am going to replace it with a line. Okay, there is a line. So, the height of the person, I will say, is my z coordinate. Actually, if you look at it, you will see that z is written there. Then this, from his feet, you can draw a perpendicular onto the x axis, and this distance you will denote as the y coordinate, and then this point r is at a distance x from the origin. So, these are the Cartesian coordinates x, y, and z. Okay. So, this is how the Cartesian coordinates are defined. Now, how are spherical polar coordinates defined, that you will see in a minute or in a second. Actually, what I do is I join the point P to the origin, right, and denote the distance of the point from the origin by the symbol r. Okay. What is r? R is actually nothing but the length of this vector r. So, I will denote it by the symbol r without the vector sign. So, what is actually our r? R is equal to square root of x square plus y square plus z square. Okay. So, in order to specify the position of the particle, I can use this as one of the coordinates. Fine. Now, what is the minimum possible value for r? Well, r is the length of a vector, length, right. In fact, if you imagine that my head is the point that is to be specified, I can imagine that my head, I mean, of course, it is difficult to manage that, but I can imagine that it has been put there, and then the value of r will be 0. or I may be standing far away from the origin, in which case the value of r would be extremely large. So, therefore, r actually can vary from the minimum value of 0 right, r can vary from the minimum value 0 to a maximum value of infinity. So, if you say that r is equal to 10 feet, that means I am standing somewhere here. So, that my head is at a distance of 10 feet from the origin. But even if I moved a little bit, actually I can move it in such a fashion that the distance does not change, r is still 10, right. So, if I tell you that the point is at a distance of 10 feet, what it means is that the point is anywhere on the surface of a sphere of radius 10 feet, correct. You do not know where exactly the point is. All that you can say is, if you specified the value for r, all that you can know is it is somewhere on the surface of a sphere having that radius. But where exactly would it be on that sphere, that you need additional coordinates, right. So, what are the additional coordinates that you will use? Well, you can imagine that the point P is joined to the origin, that is the line which has a length r, and if you wanted to specify the orientation of this line in space, how will you specify the orientation? One coordinate that you can use to specify the orientation of this line in space is this angle, the angle between, right, the red line and the line that joins the origin to the point P. Well, if this is your point, you imagine that this point is origin is joined to that point, and you can specify this angle theta, which is the angle between the positive direction of the z axis and the line that joins origin to that point P, correct. Now, suppose theta is 0, suppose, then you can immediately say that okay, the point is somewhere along the z axis, right. But suppose then I say okay, theta is equal to 30 degrees, I do not give you any more information, then where is the point? What would be your answer? Well, the answer would be the following. Imagine that this is your z axis, okay, and you think of a cone like this one, such that it is around the z axis. Okay, difficult to do this, right. This is the z axis, and you think of a cone having such a shape, such that the internal angle, this internal angle is how much? 30 degrees. And if you think about it, for any point on the surface of this cone, you can think of a line joining that point to the origin, and you will find that the angle made is actually 30 degrees. So, therefore, if I say that theta has a value 30 degrees, all that you can say is that the point has to be somewhere on the surface of this cone. So, now suppose I increase the value of theta to 45 degrees, what would happen? The cone would expand a little bit. You can go on to make it 60, cone would have expanded more, and suppose I go on to increase the angle to 90 degrees. then what would happen? The cone would have opened up, and what would be that plane? It will actually be the xy plane, right. So, any point on the xy plane would have a value of theta equal to 90 degrees. Then suppose I went on increasing theta further, let us say to 120 degrees, then what would happen is that the cone now points in the opposite direction. Earlier the tip of the cone was pointing down, but now the tip of the cone is pointing up, correct, and it could be, the point could be anywhere on the surface of this cone, but when you go on increasing the value of theta, eventually when the value of theta reaches 180 degrees, what would happen? The cone would degenerate into the negative z axis, correct. So, it should be obvious to you that any point in this space has a value of theta which lies between 0 and 180, that is enough, I do not need anything more. Any point in space would have a value of theta which lies between 0 and 180 degrees. So, theta actually you can say it has to be between 0 and pi in radians. I was speaking in terms of degrees, but in radians it would be 0 and pi. So, now if I told you that r is equal to 10 feet and theta is equal to 90 degrees, suppose, what will you say? Well, the first statement implies that it is on the surface of a sphere having radius 10 feet. The second statement says that it is in the xy plane. So, therefore, these two combined together will tell me that the point is somewhere along a circle of radius 10 feet lying in the xy plane, right. That still does not enable me to specify the point exactly, which means that I need one more additional coordinate, right, and that coordinate I am going to introduce now. So, what I do is, I think of this line PQ, right. PQ was actually that person, if you remember it, PQ was that person. So, I take that person, I mean imagine I myself is the person. So, I take PQ and you can see that I myself am parallel to the z axis, right, and therefore, I can think of a plane which contains myself and the z axis, right, and if I can specify the orientation of this plane, that is fine, then you would know where the point is, right. That will be my final coordinate. In order to specify the final coordinate of the point, it is enough if I specified the orientation of this plane. And how do I specify the orientation of this plane? I make use of a coordinate which I refer to as phi. Phi is the angle, you look at this angle, it is the angle between the positive direction of the x axis, correct, and this plane consisting of the line PQ and OZ, right. O is the origin and the positive direction of the z axis. So, there is a plane formed by PQOZ, and to specify the orientation of that plane you make use of this angle phi, correct. And now suppose you see I am standing somewhere here, so that my head is in the which plane would you like to have my head? Let me say in the xz plane. Suppose I am standing somewhere there, unfortunately in this room I cannot do that, but anyway, suppose I am standing there such that my head is in the xz plane, then what would be the value of phi? it will be 0, but then if suppose I am standing there and then I start moving like this, if I move like this, obviously I am increasing the value of phi. And if I am now in this plane, in the plane of the board, remember the y axis is down there and the z axis is there. So if I put my head in the plane of the board, obviously the value of phi would be 90 degrees, then imagine I go around, right. I go around, what will happen? The value of phi will go on increasing. Eventually when I am back where I started, the value of phi would have increased to 360 or 2 pi radians, correct. So therefore to specify any arbitrary point in space, I need to allow phi to vary between 0 and 2 pi radians. Correct. We can also think about it in this fashion. Suppose I am standing here, so that the value of phi is 45. Okay, the value of phi is 45 when I am standing here, and then I go around and come back here. I go around the origin and come back here. What would happen? Phi would have increased. It would have reached the value 360, and if I then continued, I can say 361, 62, etc., and I would have reached here 405 degrees, correct. So if I could have said that the value of phi for me here is 45 degrees, or equivalently well I could have said that it is 405. So the point that I am trying to convey is that a particular point which has a phi coordinate equal to something which we denote as phi, it is equally well to say that its coordinate is 2 pi plus phi, or in other words phi and 2 pi plus phi are equivalent, correct. They refer to the same point. Any point you can say its coordinate, this particular coordinate is phi, or you can also say that its coordinate is 2 pi plus phi. It is equally fine, both refer to the same point, right. This is something that we will be using later. But as far as any point is in space is concerned, it is enough if I allowed phi to vary from 0 to 2 pi. But if I want, I can think of phi as a continuously changing variable running from 0 to any number. The only condition is that any value of phi, if you add a 2 pi to it, nothing happens, the point remains unchanged. Okay. So whatever I have told you is given in this slide. R belongs to 0 to infinity, theta belongs to 0 to pi, phi belongs to 0 to 2 pi. So now what is going to happen is that my wave function, which is a function of x, y and z, we decided that we do not want x, y and z, but instead we want to change over to r theta phi. So therefore we will get rid of x, y, z and express everything in terms of r theta phi. So naturally I will have to express x, y and z in terms of r theta phi. So how will I do that? Well, this is my point P, and if you remember, I will just mark the coordinates here. This is PQ, and that point is R. This distance is x, this distance is y, and that is z, capital X, capital Y and capital Z. And this angle is phi. right. This is how the point is, and we I have also shown all the coordinates. This is R, and the origin, as I had been telling you, is denoted by the symbol O. So, it is actually a matter of simple trigonometry to find a relationship between x, y and z and r theta phi. So, just to illustrate, okay, this is the coordinate z, and what is this angle, or maybe what is this angle? Well, you have to remember that PQ is myself. So, if I am standing here, imagine my feet is joined to the feet is joined to the origin, and this angle is actually nothing but the angle between myself and the line that joins the feet to the origin, and therefore, this angle will be 90 degrees, even though it does not appear to be 90 in the picture. Why? Because you see the 3-dimensional things I am trying to represent on a blackboard which is 2-dimensional. So, therefore, what I am saying is that this actually is a right angle triangle in 3 dimensions, right. R is the hypotenuse of the right angle triangle, and Z, this height, is one of the sides, okay. And how much would this angle be? Well, the entire this total angle obviously will be 90 degrees, and this much is only theta, and therefore, the angle that is remaining is actually 90 minus theta, right. And if this angle is 90 minus theta, this is 90 degrees, then naturally this angle has to be equal to theta, correct. And therefore, you can immediately say that Z must be equal to R cos theta. Correct. We are just making use of simple trigonometry. And how much should be this length? OQ should be how much? That is the other side of the right angle triangle. It must be equal to R sin theta. Fine. And then you see, you can say, well, if you think of this angle, how much is that angle? Well, you have to think of the model. You see, this is myself, and here is the perpendicular from the point where I am standing to the x axis. This line actually is perpendicular to the x axis, and therefore, this angle has to be 90 degrees, even though it does not appear to be so. So, this is another right angle triangle, right. And using trigonometry, you can show that x must be equal to R sin theta cos phi, and y must be equal to R sin theta sin phi. So, therefore, if you wanted, I mean, this is essentially very simple trigonometry. All that you need to do is you have to worry about this triangle. What is the triangle? Actually, OQR. If you worry about that right angle triangle, realize that OQ is its hypotenuse, right, and x and y are its sides, and this angle is equal to phi. OQ we had already found out, OQ was found to be r sin theta. So, therefore, what happens, x and y should be equal to r sin theta cos phi and y should be equal to r sin theta sin phi. So, this is fairly simple derivation, and what you have to do is you have to make use of these relationships, correct. What is it that I want to do? I want to change from Cartesian coordinates to polar coordinates. Now, when you look at the equation that I want to solve, what is the equation? The equation is written here, h psi is equal to E psi, but when you look at this equation, you would realize that there is del square there. What is del square? Del square involves partial differentiation with respect to x, y and z, right. In fact, there is kinetic energy due to motion in the x direction, kinetic energy due to motion in the y direction as well as in the z direction contained in there. And in Cartesian coordinates, it is actually quite straightforward. You will have dou square upon dou x square plus dou square upon dou y square plus dou square upon dou z square, correct. This is how this is what the del square operator is, correct. But now I am saying that I do not want to use x, y or z. I want to use the coordinates r theta phi, right. That means, here this partial differentiation with respect to x has to be expressed in terms of partial differentiations with respect to the new variables which are r, theta and phi. And similarly, partial differentiation with respect to y as well as z have to be expressed. This is a very lengthy algebra is involved here. So, I will not be doing the algebra, but let me just remind you how it may be done. So, you can say that dou by dou x, partial differentiation with respect to x, may be written as dou r by dou x into dou by dou r plus dou theta by dou x into dou by dou theta plus dou phi by dou x into dou by dou phi. This is only dou by dou x. Now, you have to evaluate dou r by dou x, dou theta by dou x and dou phi by dou x, and then you will have another similar expression for dou by dou y, dou by then yet another one for dou by dou z, right. So, you will have to do all these things, after which you will have to calculate dou square upon dou x square, dou square upon dou y square, dou square upon dou z square. You can see that it is quite messy, and then you will have to add up all these things, right. So, it is a fairly lengthy algebra. If one were to do it, it may take 1 hour to do it, but we will not do that, and therefore, you will have to believe me when I say that del square has an expression that I am going to write. So, if we did all these things, what happens to the Hamiltonian? Well, the answer is minus h cross square by 2 mu So, this is the first term that you will find. Second term involves differentiation with respect to theta. Third term involving differentiation with respect to phi. What am I writing now? I am writing the potential energy, and the potential energy actually contains only magnitude of r, which is the number r that we have been talking about. So, 4 pi epsilon 0 r. So, this is your Hamiltonian operator, and the whole thing operating upon psi, now you have to imagine that this psi is a function of r theta and phi, and the answer must be equal to the energy psi E multiplied by psi r theta phi. So, that is the full form of the Schrodinger equation written in polar coordinates, and if you look at this expression, you really wonder whether any progress has been made, because actually this looks more complex than the previous equation, correct. But interestingly, you can manipulate this equation and find a solution. But even though we have not derived this equation, actually you can have physical interpretations for the different terms in the equation. So, you look at this term, the first term involves differentiation with respect to what may be referred to as the radial coordinate r, right, the radial coordinate r. So, if you have the electron can be moving in the radial direction, right, which is moving in all directions, but there is a component which is moving in the radial direction, right. There is a component in the radial direction. So, therefore, what will happen is that there will be a kinetic energy due to the change in the value of r, right, and that is this term. You have two differentiations with respect to r, actually little bit more complex than what you have in Cartesian coordinates, but the meaning is the same. This term represents the kinetic energy operator associated with radial motion. But then of course, you see the electron is not moving radially alone, it is moving in other directions also. So, if it is moving in the other directions, what is going to happen? You will have kinetic energy associated with theta motion as well as with phi motion. So, these are those kinetic energies. You can see that there is differentiation with respect to theta here, and that is simply happening because this represents kinetic energy associated with theta motion, and this represents kinetic energy associated with phi motion. So, those are the physical meanings of the different terms, and this term of course simply represents the potential energy due to the fact that there is electrostatic interaction between the electron and the nucleus. And now, what we will do is we will say that psi r theta phi, it is a function of three variables. We want to solve this, and we know only one method, actually we have discussed only one method for solving this kind of differential equations. What is that one method? We will say that it may be written as a product of three functions, which I am going to write as capital R. This symbol is capital theta and this symbol is capital phi. And what I will assume is that capital R depends only upon small r, capital theta depends only upon small theta, and capital phi depends only upon small phi. So, we divide the wave function into three separate parts. So, the wave function is a product of three separate parts, each part depending only upon one coordinate, and then we will have to find capital R, capital theta and capital phi in such a fashion that the product obeys the original Schrodinger equation. That is the way we proceed. Okay, I shall continue in the next lecture. So, thank you for listening.